Hey, it's Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, and this is our last episode of the season, and I want to just go over a couple things that are going on in the works. First of all, I hope you've been following me on social media because it is May, and May is International Masturbation Month. Yes, it is true. It was named after the former Jocelyn Elders, who was asked to resign during the Bill Clinton presidency because she suggests that masturbation be part of sex education in high schools. And unfortunately, yes, she was asked to resign when I'm here as a doctor to tell you it is healthy and normal. We're not going to get much into it here because we've got some other fun things that I want to share with you. But today's episode is actually sponsored by a company called Plus One. You can see their products here to my side. And I just want to briefly mention that follow me on social media for you to see an unboxing of these products and a further discussion of the health benefits of self-pleasure. But the other thing that we have coming up this summer when our season is not in session is the second Happy Vagina Rally Women's Pelvic Health Summit. And it's not just a pelvic health summit. It is talking about all things related to women's health. So we are going to talk about pelvic health. We also have some speakers talking about hair health. We have speakers talking about general wellness. We have speakers talking about hormones. But because you guys are such an amazing and dedicated listeners and followers of this show, I've decided to give you guys a sneak peek that no one else is going to get into what is coming up in this free summit. So this is a free virtual summit. You're going to go to happyvrally.com to sign up. Actually, make sure you use the link that is listed here on the website. That actually helps us track where those recommendations are coming from and those signups are coming from. So use the sign up button that is here on the site and join me this summer. It's going to be August 10th through 13th as we talk about all things women's wellness.
I would say the most important real estate of our body is clitoris to anus, because when we have problems here, it just changes your quality of life, whether it's a vaginal yeast infection, whether it's bladder leaking or a hemorrhoid or anal fissure. I mean, those are the negatives where.
So we're going to be talking about libido and pleasure. And you know what, first of all, I think this is a topic that we just don't talk about enough. So what do you see, not only do we not talk about it, we're not even taught any of this stuff. We're kind of like sent on our own to go figure out our sex lives.
Yeah, it's a really important thing. And even statistically speaking, when we look at stats, there's one research study that says 77% of people wish this was a topic that was talked about more. So we're not seeing that it has a place yet in social media, in the news, but yet we're really seeing that there is a desire for people to normalize this conversation. So it's a really important conversation. Up to somewhere between 43 and 50%, depending upon what source you use of people.
That's how committed I was. I mean, I went on this research deep dive quest, and it took me a long time before I finally stumbled across what was going on. And it's something called repressed metabolic syndrome. This is RMS, repressed metabolic syndrome. And you can't find this anywhere. I don't even know how I found it. But essentially what I figured out was that when a person diets too much, or they actually restrict too much calories, or they over-exercise, or a combination, it actually turns off your body's fat-burning mechanism, which is different than the metabolism, and it shuts down your metabolism. Your body downgrades its own metabolism. And then it makes it impossible to burn fat. So now no matter what you do, no matter what you eat, you just get fat. This is what was happening with Ashley. So I go back to Ashley and I say, I figured it out. here's what it is. And she goes, okay, great. What do we have to do? I go, well, you're not going to believe this, but we actually have to eat more and work out less. She goes, are you crazy?
Felt just like me. And then how much better they felt once they got their hormones back in balance. That really allowed me to open my mind. And I learned that there were all sorts of things that I didn't learn at medical school, that there was real science behind this idea of hormone health. And I retrained, and I was able to get my hormones back in balance. And I got my energy back. My kids got their mom back. My husband got his wife back, and I got my life back. But I couldn't go back to just writing prescriptions all day long, which is what I used to do, because it just didn't make any sense to me. So for the last 15 years, I've been helping men and women get their hormones back in balance.
The gut is foundational, and if you are a woman, the gut is going to affect so many systems. It's going to affect your hormone balance. It's going to affect your brain, your mental clarity. It's going to affect the health of your vagina. It's going to affect how you feel, so you can, even if your gut is not well, you're not going to feel sexy. You're not going to want to have sex, right? If you're bloated and uncomfortable, the last thing you want is to think about sex. So the gut is kind of this determining factor that controls so many things. What people don't realize, though, is that you don't have to have gut symptoms to have gut-related health issues.
Clients, and I've been gathering information for many years, and what I realize is that we have different lovers types. So I call it the Eros lovers types. And so, in a nutshell, you can be either a water, wind, earth, or fire lovers type. And each one has different qualities, different things that work to turn them on. They have different challenges, and they have really, really unique things that they like. And so it's really a tool that I've used to people, singles and couples, who are looking to, first of all, it's another way of falling back in love with yourself, okay? So you just fall in love with whatever type you are. And if you want, I can go into the types a little bit and so forth. And then the second part is that when there's a difference between you and your partner, of course, it's really, really nice to have the keys that work to open their heart, their mind, their body, and their whole being to being loved at a higher level. So that's, in a nutshell, why I created this as a tool to help people when they have these like mismatches and they were just always kind of, missing the mark and floundering around and not saying the right thing, not knowing how to approach your partner, even though you might be together for a long time. What I found is this remarkable.
Not that this is an exciting topic, but it is a topic that many of us have suffered with, and that's period pain. And so, I think there's too many women that just kind of blow it off and think like this is just a natural part of being a woman. But that's not necessarily true.
It's interesting because when I was looking at a little bit more of the numbers around it more recently, it was something like 90% of women have experienced period pain, right?
Yeah.
And if you're blessed to be one of the 10%, well, this is not for you, but but it's interesting. And then there's reasons, obviously, that you can have period pain, but 90%, that's a huge statistic.
So I wanted to talk to you about exercise, because I have to say that is a word that does not bring warm, fuzzy feelings to me. And I'm trying to change my identity, because like up until now, I've said like I'm not an exercise person. And so, and there are people who believe that they are exercise people, and there are people who believe they're not exercise people. But really, when it comes down to it, we all need movement in our lives. Mm-hmm. So what have you found over the years?
Well, I think that was a great distinction you just made without maybe realizing we just made a distinction for everybody. We all need movement. And, the more movement you have in your life, you may need less exercise. And honestly, I think that, there are those people who are on the other end of the continuum and they think of themselves as an exercise person. But I would have to say I have been one, was one. But when I'm really honest about, as much as I was exercising, that didn't necessarily mean I had more energy. In fact, it may have meant I was more tired, but denying it, when I was doing more, I was also potentially more attracted to sugar, more attracted to artificial sweeteners in, say, caffeinated beverages in order to keep me going. And, we kind of mysteriously forget those pieces and we think, oh, I wish I was as fit then. When I really sort that out, I'm thinking, I don't know if I was actually really fit, I was more active. But that doesn't equate to fit.
I mean, the research hasn't really caught up with us yet, but the research has really expanded and blossomed in the last, I would say, 10, even 5 years when we're talking about clitoridynia and pudendal neuralgia and all of these things that are nerve related. So we're really opening our eyes and really looking for the cause of vulvodynia, because remember, vulvodynia tells you where the pain is located. It doesn't tell you what is causing the pain, and that's the key to treatment. Figure out the cause and the treatment will follow.
And that's a really good point, because sometimes I would come across patients who like, oh, I have this diagnosis, and they get really excited. They're like, oh, if I have a diagnosis, then there must be an answer.
Stress-related, chronic, downward spiraling, often degenerative condition. This is the things that's been beating people up for years, and no one seems to be able to get to the bottom of it. In those cases, you have to run numerous tests, a number of tests, because you don't know what the upstream healing opportunities are. And there's always going to be multiple upstream healing opportunities, always multiple. So I was trained to look for the root cause, but there's never one. There's always multiple causal factors. And here's the thing, Betsy, no one seems to consider much. They're having an effect upon each other. So all of the, I look at it as a constellation of healing opportunities. Why not find as many as you can? Like right out of the gate, right up front. You have someone who's been to eight practitioners, isn't better, chronic, downward spiraling, just getting worse. And even though they might have had a diagnosis of this and their Hashimoto's, their irritable bowel, or their migraines, chronic fatigue, or they've had some diagnoses, but that and the treatment plan hasn't worked. And so we just get out of the box completely. Let's just look for this constellation of healing factors. Now the pattern that I recognize, and I don't mean to throw it on me like I'm great, but it was like anyone could have seen it if they ran that many labs. You'd have seen it too, that it's hormones, immune system, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system balance, sympathetic. So those 6 areas, it spells hidden, HIDDEN.
Own body, and working your way up to learning your anatomy and all the different aspects that you probably didn't learn coming along. Because let's be honest, our sex education is lacking in many, many ways, right? And then of course, dealing with the emotional and all the things that come with that. Because like Dr. Betsy was saying, there's so many layers that have to be really looked at.
And it always makes me laugh that when you turn on the TV and you can turn on any kind of Netflix movie or whatever, there's so much violence. But God forbid you have a sex scene in something, which is so incredibly natural. It's how we all got here. Now that's like so taboo. So I'm wondering, I don't even know, how do we untaboo sex?
Right. Well, I think number one is you're doing here is talking about it. Creating spaces for people to talk about it. And I do feel like that's one of the things that I do see more and more. I've been doing this work for a decade now, and even just popular culture, how it's embracing ways to find more pleasure. Even on Netflix, there's all kinds of series around pleasure and sex. And so it's becoming more in the mainstream, which I think is a great first step.
And I know this, and I'm like, I've been
I got busy and forget to do my hormones, and I've kind of been in that place myself recently. I'm gonna go, like, as soon as we're done with this interview, I'm going right upstairs to start doing my hormones again, because I'm going, man, why have I been so like flaky and right depressed and down? And I totally forgot about this, because sometimes when you're taking the hormones for a while and you forget, because maybe like you go on vacation, you forget to bring them, you're like, I don't really need them, or they're not really doing anything.
Yes, I hear that. I get, messages from patients all the time. I am so miserable. I've gained 3 pounds. I have no libido. I don't want to do anything. Oh yeah, I forgot. I haven't been taking my patches. I didn't get them refilled. It's like, it literally affects your life that much. And so I want women to understand, like, hormones keep you balanced. They keep you healthy mentally, physically, emotionally. And it's all fine and good as long as you're making your own hormones. But as soon as you're not, you have to have like a come to Jesus talk with yourself and your doctor. Am I going to go on the menopausal path and ride this out, figure out how to balance all my other systems so I can get through this naturally? Or do I want to prolong this time period and maybe stay in my 48-year-old body for the next 20 some years? That's my plan, because we know now from the research that hormone replacement can be done very safely, and it's also beneficial. It prevents chronic disease processes from occurring. So you should
certainly chronic low energy levels, however you want to frame it, has become a massive epidemic. And depending on how you define it, and this is sort of arbitrary in a way, because fatigue is really a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you have debilitating chronic fatigue syndrome. Somebody is bedridden and can barely function mentally and physically and can't really sustain any kind of exertion. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have youthful energy levels, little kids bouncing off the walls with energy that are just go, go, go nonstop all day. And most people are somewhere in between.
And so this talk was really to expose the gaslighting that's going on, because women over 40 are being told that there are only 3 symptoms of menopause, perimenopause, which is insane. There are over 60 documented, and they're not getting the right treatment because they're being told that treatment is dangerous, you don't need it, you shouldn't have it, and if you do need it for the 3 symptoms, you should only use it in the lowest dose possible for the shortest amount of time. And so our quality of life is suffering.
Number one question is, why didn't anybody tell me about this before? That's always the most common question. And then the rest is now, will I have to have surgery? That's always also very common. How long will it take to get better? And will I need to do Kegels for the rest of my life?
Owning who we really are. And I'm teaching a class called Absolute Confidence, and I'm in there, I'm teaching, it's the very thing that you dread the most to reveal is typically where the most magic lies. And it pains me to see people keep that one part in, because the one part they think is going to save them, and it's actually one thing, like you said, that keeps them stuck. And if we can own that part of ourselves and let it out and be part of who we are, I see it time and again how people's lives completely change for the better.
Thank you, Betsy. Thanks for making this a fun topic. Thank you for making this a fun subject and easy to talk about. I mean, removing the shame, the barriers to talking about it, and we have to talk about it or we're not going to get better.
And once again, thank you so much for following me here, and stay tuned. We'll have another fun season coming up in the fall. Contact me through social media. Let me know what other topics you want to hear. And don't forget to hit the donate button, because every dollar that you give helps to support the great projects that WYTV7 are doing in the community, and also to help support the amazing programming that we have here. So once again, thank you so much for another awesome season. I'll see you next season. Enjoy your summer.